Hello, everybody, and welcome back to KDP A to Z. Now, they say that you can't judge a book by its cover, but unfortunately, when someone is looking to purchase a book on Amazon, this little thumbnail is all that they have to go on to make a decision as to whether to click on your product or not. So, you need to make it look really fantastic. Today, I'm going to detail exactly what your book cover needs to have to make it look outstanding. It needs to look professional, it needs to stick with the branding, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by all of that. But before we start, there's just a couple of questions that every book cover always answers. Does the book address the problem? And does the book reveal the method to solving that problem? Now, that might sound a little bit confusing, but when you're looking at these books, you can clearly see a bit more what I mean. So, for example, this is a children's book. The problem in this case would be that the parent is looking for a book to read to their child. The book cover itself is answering the question of how this problem is going to be resolved by showing you that it's beautifully illustrated. It's a nice, gentle story, large print. I think this covers it really well. And that's because that book has stuck with genre and branding. It's had good use of typography and good use of colour and illustration. The parent is able to recognise that as a children's book. Similarly, with books about self help, people have come to recognise that a simpler design such as this is going to be quite an instructive kind of book. That's a good cover for that particular genre because it is quite simple. So when I say stick with branding, that is what I mean. Another great example here of sticking with similar sort of branding. This is clearly a book that is a bit more for a grown up child, more around the age of 8 or 9. Still quite nicely illustrated, but a little bit more detailed. And again, that's sticking with books of a similar ilk. The question of addressing the problem in this case would be that the person is looking for a book to read for the 8 to 9 year old. And this kind of clearly indicates the kind of story it's going to be about. It's got the picture of the dog and stuff on it. So that's revealing a little bit about the method. It looks fun and exciting. And that shows a great cover. So let's have a little look at a kind of book that is often independently published, and that is dot marker activity books. Now you can see we've got a good range of those kind of books here, and a lot of them have been independently published. Some are doing better than others. So let's have a little look and see whether they are actually answering the question. Does the book address the problem, and is the cover showing a solution to that problem? And I think you might agree that a lot of these are meeting those questions quite well. They are clearly showing that they are dot marker activity books, and they show you the method by having an illustration of how to fill in the books. Now you can see on this page the bestsellers ranking. And you can also see that this one that has been published by a proper publisher is nowhere near doing as well as an independently published one. So I want to know, what's the difference between these two book covers? Now, the answer, I think, is that this book cover has stuck with a particular kind of branding. If I'm looking at this particular book cover, I'm thinking personally about Crayola pens. And that makes me think that looks more professional than, say, this one. Now, when I say it looks a little bit similar to Crayola, it doesn't really, but it does have that yellowish sort of background that the Crayola pens have. I think that's what's making me think of Crayola pens. And this particular book, the Dinosaurs Dot Markers activity book, that really does look very similar to the Crayola colours. And I think that's one of the reasons that this set of books is doing really, really well. You can see as well that this person has stuck to their own branding, which has a really good effect on the actual page. So if you see a lot of these kind of books with similar branding, similar design, you're going to think they make a lot of books. They must be a brand. They must be a regular publisher. So this is one of the reasons why it's really important to stay within your niche and just to do it really, really well and keep repeating the process, because you set yourself apart and you create your own brand. That's something I do a lot with these videos. You'll notice that my thumbnails for my videos are always very similar, and that's so someone can recognize my videos. Another really good example of sticking with branding would be in the puzzle niche. So you can see that the Times make great puzzle books. That's well known. They're always going to be in the best selling field. Same with the Daily Mail and the Telegraph. But you'll also notice that they have a similar sort of structure to them. Both the Times and the Daily Mail use blocks of solid colour, big clear writing, and they have got a picture of a crossword on the back of them. Now, those are in the bestseller rankings and they're doing very well. But this one is independently published. You can see that they have gone for a very similar style. Whilst not breaching copyright or anything else, they have gone for a similar style of front cover with a solid colour and an example of a crossword on it. And that works well for that person because clearly they're doing very well with this book. Puzzle King Publishing does create an awful lot of books, and they have set themselves apart as their own sort of brand because they always have this sort of background on them. So, again, if somebody likes that style of book and have enjoyed that book in the past, they're going to enjoy this one as well. The next thing I wanted to cover in this video was about typography. Now, by typography, I mean your fonts. That's an important one to look at and to compare when you're comparing your book to others. You can see that, for example, in this section that I'm looking at, this is a perimenopause self-help book. A lot of these are very simple fonts, simple covers. All again, addressing the same issues, answering the problem and telling them how they're going to solve the problem. This is quite nice, calming colours. It's showing that it's going to be a calming experience reading this book. This would not work so well if it was bright red colours. Now, speaking of colours, I wanted to show you this quite cool tool that Canva has come up with. I'll leave the link in the description for you, but it shows what colours work well together. So this is complementary colours. They show contrasting colours to each other that all look good together on the page. Now, an example of that colour combination would be here. So if you want to have a little look and explore this, you could do. So say you wanted a blue and you want to know what colour would look good against that. You just drag your cursor into the blue area and it will show you a colour that'll work well with that. It'll even give you the code to that colour. And again, you can explore the palette and look how good those look together. Now, if you want more colour combinations on there, you could look at triadic, which would be 3 different colours, or 4 colours, this. And again, just drag it around where you want it to be. Those colours look great together and they will look good on a book cover. Always as well combining with a base colour such as white or black. Now, for fiction kind of books, you might prefer to select the analogous option. You'll notice if you're looking on Amazon that the fiction kind of books are more of these sort of analogous kind of colour combinations. But for a non-fiction book, I would usually go with contrast. So complementary or the 3 colours or 4. So that's just a great little tool that you can use and it is completely free. You don't have to have the paid version of Canva to use that. Now, I think personally that this book answers all the questions that someone might have about the book very clearly. It's very simple text, so it's indicating that the book is going to help you through the menopause in a simple, calming way. But it's also got a good mix of both keywords and copyright. By copyright, I mean it reads nicely. So the keyword in this case would be menopause, positive and calm. But they've put it all together in a nice way and they've used mindful menopause as their title. If it was just menopause, it would be boring. So they've mixed the keywords in there nicely into their title. This book cover here indicates something slightly different and a different approach to solving the menopause problem. This one is a little bit more bouncy. The typography is slightly different. It's a bit more fluffy. The colours are more contrasting. And this all comes together to indicate that this is going to be a bit more of a enjoyable book to read, perhaps. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk to you very importantly about is the use of space and shape. You need to have good use of space. You don't want to completely fill the page. And you can see that a lot of these books aren't filling the page, but they are drawing your eye. This shape here is clearly indicating down to this information at the bottom of the page here. So it's like a little arrow. That's a very clever use of shape. This, I would say, is not such a good example of a front cover. You can see it looks wonky. It doesn't look professional. Based on that front cover, I wouldn't even look at it. It doesn't look professional to me because of the slanting to the one side. I'm not quite sure what this is. This red stripe down the side. Maybe it's to do with the cat and the tortoise. I don't know who's bought this. But it doesn't answer any question. Is it a story? I couldn't tell you. A bit of a send up? Don't know what that means. This is not a good example to me of a good book cover. Now, planning the layout of your front cover is quite tricky, and it's all related to psychology and space and shape. And basically, what you have to do is think about where your eye is naturally drawn to on the page. And if you can't see that so well on these, have a little look at this picture here. If your eye in this picture is naturally drawn to this area here with L'Oreal, that is no mistake. Supermarkets are really good at marketing according to psychology, and they know that most people will be looking at eye level and will go to the left hand side first. So that is where they'll put their brand leaders to let you know that that is the shampoo aisle, and then it can draw the eye to other cheaper areas further down. So the principle is the same when you apply it to book covers. Your person is going to be looking sort of eye level. So they're naturally looking at 1/3 of the page down, and they'll always start left to right. Obviously, that's the way we read. That's why your eye will naturally be drawn to that left top hand corner. Your eye would also be drawn after that top left hand corner issue. Your eye is naturally drawn to any areas of contrasting colours. So the next point of interest for me would be around here, because that's in a sort of a different colour contrasting into a sea of beige. You'll see that that is forming a sort of diagonal. The next one you'd go to would be there naturally. Now you'll see that that has formed a sort of a triangular shape. That's the kind of shape that we normally think about when we're laying out a book. Here's a good example. So you'll see this shape, that sort of triangular shape. Can you see that? It's very clever, very subtle. Here's another good example of that sort of shape being laid out for you. Starting here's the title, draws you to the cake and down again. It is a very subtle way of doing it, but that sort of layout of shape is what I'm talking about for your book covers. Now, obviously, that won't apply for every single book cover, but you'll see for the most part, it does. It's sort of coming in here on this one. That shape is being replicated in lots of different books. Again, here, this shape, this triangular shape. You'll notice that this sort of dead space here is natural. Almost every single book cover has that sort of triangular area of dead space next to that spine. Now, I know that that was an awful lot of information to cover in one video, so I just wanted to quickly summarize the key points about your book cover and what you should be doing. So your book cover should be answering the problem and demonstrate how it is answering the problem. And the way it does that can be in a number of ways, and a mix of both the title, the information on the front cover in the forms of wording, but as well with the kind of font that you're using, the colors that you're using, and the layout of the page. Your title should be both a mix of keywords and copyright. So it should have the keywords, but not just the keywords. It should also read nicely to the reader. If you're going for more factual books, more bold, informational kind of books, you'd be looking for contrasting colors. Whereas you'd be looking for more sort of similar colours if you're looking for something calming or fictional. The use of the shape is quite important. The page should draw the reader in a triangular way down the page. And always stick with the brand, because your purchaser is looking for the brand. They're looking for something similar to what they know. I really hope you found this video enjoyable. If you have, do give me a thumbs up and feel free to subscribe to my channel. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.